Hello, and welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
This is the podcast about murders and so much more. We will talk about anything strange, anything that goes bump in the night, and pretty much anything that amuses us.
And on that note, we need to mention that this podcast is not safe for work or delicate ears, so do be discerning who you listen to it with.
We also want to let you know that you can find us on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram, so look for us there.
I am Shannon Lawrence. I am a writer, mom, wife, student, procrastinator, and you can find me at thewarriormuse.com.
My name is MB Partlow. I am a writer, an avid reader, an organizer extraordinaire, a mom to kids, cats, and a dog, and I call bullshit when I see it.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello, hello. Good day.
Buongiorno. Are we doing this?
You can
Good
tell.
day, mate.
We put a lot of thought into our openings. What are we going to talk about?
No, we just hit record and then let what it spill.
Pretty much.
That's how we do most things. If you've ever seen us host something in person, it is also what we do. But it's a little easier, actually, with a crowd of people looking at you and responding.
That's true. And I dare say that people did not look at our events and think, what the hell do they think they're doing? Because the scurrying was always behind the scenes.
That's true. It looked very collected, and
yes, very
you could not
professional.
actually tell how big of an introvert I am when I was up there.
That's
you could
true.
tell how big of an extrovert MB was.
My favorite was still when we were doing a right brain on your birthday. And I had Thing
Yes.
to come in dressed as a clown. She had a big box of Hertz donuts. And she came in dressed as a clown, and she walked up on stage. So I had Shannon on stage with her back to the door, so she couldn't see her come in. And Thing 2 had filled her mouth with fake blood.
Yes.
So she walks up to Shannon with this box and says, "Happy birthday." And the blood just dribbles down her chin.
Magnificent. Still awesome. Then everybody got donuts, so
Yeah.
win-win.
Hertz donuts.
Now, I guess the background on that is in October,
Yes.
Hertz, you can order donuts from Hertz Donuts and get it delivered by a clown. And so they were putting out all these videos. And
Yes.
I am not afraid of clowns, but I am highly amused by how scared people are of clowns.
Yes. Those
And
were
therefore I'm
some...
amused by clowns.
Those were some hilarious videos.
Oh my God.
I guess not if
Like
you are scared
a
of clowns.
grown-ass man running at some industrial job that he has, like, through equipment away from a clown. So, yes, but my birthday is in November. And so I kept telling people, somebody needs to send me a clown donuts. Like I said, it all through October. And then B went to surprise me for my birthday. And that's when you discovered it's October only.
Yes.
But then she and Thing 2 hooked me up.
Yep.
I like a surprise.
And credit to Thing 1 who did the driving.
Yes. She chauffeured the bloody clown. All the way out to Hertz Donuts, which is like on the opposite side of town from where we were. Kind of.
Well, east and north.
I learned. So
What?
I was talking to somebody who works at Library 21C, which is, it's 21st century is what that stands for. It's a tech library and that's where we held our events for people out there. And it was a really neat place. It already had everything set up because it was a tech library. So we had a big screen and a stage and a projector.
And a microphone.
They had a 3D printer there when they first came, several, I think, and did all these neat things. I took the kids there to do this robotics, like circuitry thing. Anyway, cool place. So I was asking because the person I spoke to, who is a horror author, actually, or no, sorry, sci-fi fantasy, mostly sci-fi, I think, and then cookbook and stuff well, not a cookbook, but a food literacy book. And if I knew it, I would say her name to get her out there because she was also a listener. I know. Well, I can't remember the name of the book, but it's Hillary Rocky Dodge. I'm going to throw her name out there so you guys can look up her food literacy book and look for her sci-fi, okay? But anyway, hi, Hillary. She said they got to do a tour. Ahead of time, it was an MCI building, and there had been plants left in there, and they'd actually, like, overgrown. And I was like, oh my God, I wish I could see pictures of that. That sounds so freaking getting cool. Because I was like, what was there? Something had to be there. It's a corner. Mm-hmm. There's businesses all around it. There's car dealerships down the way. It's next to a giant mall. Yeah, it was like an MCI building that had just been abandoned. Basically,
how can you abandon plants?
They did, though.
How dare they?
They're mean. They didn't care. They were like, they're going to die. That was like, there's a show I used to watch, and I wish it was still on there because I don't think I finished it. And it was like, after humans or something like that. And I was watching on Netflix when it was on, but I don't think it's there anymore. And it would, each episode was like, this region, here's what would happen. So it was like, most dogs could not survive, you know. I mean, you see them do packs now, but even then they're getting human garbage, right? Like they're getting food from the garbage. But there was like one kind of dog, and I don't remember what it was, that they felt could escape a house. But cats would actually, the population of cats would explode because cats are not fully tamed. No matter what, cats will never be a fully tameable animal like the dog.
And the small rodents would be everywhere.
Oh, yeah. And it was like in some regions, like in where kudzu and stuff like that has been spread.
Right.
Like it's just absolutely going to take over. Bamboo, stuff like that grows like a virus once it's in the ground. You know, I mean, aspens do that, but they're a little different in makeup, but they would still probably...
Yes.
Explode all of my backyard would be full of them. Jeff mows them down when they pop up little shoots. They're like, boop, boop, boop. I even have a cute little baby aspen out there that I made him keep for me, and now it's taller than I am.
Oh, nice.
I was like, now you have to let one more shoot come, and then we can line the back fence with it.
Yeah.
See? Quit killing my things is what I'm saying.
Quit killing my things.
Girl child and I surprise planted some sunflowers for him, and it was... because in the past, he has killed sunflowers when they grow. And I love sunflowers. They make me very happy. And they just pop up because they're wild here. They just pop up. And then he would weed eat it down or something like that. And I was like, why do you have to kill my dreams?
It is the sound effect that makes the story.
You should hear me grocery shopping. I talk to myself and make sound effects the whole way through, like, room noises and cornering noises, and then I realize there's other people around me. I don't care. Because I'm in my head grocery shopping, and therefore I am not monitoring what pours out of my face hole. And people don't understand how hard I have to monitor what pours out of my face hole. Even on here, I often end up cutting rants that I go on so that they don't. Maybe one day I'll do a, hey, let's see how many people I can piss off, and do a hot take on like all the things that I've cut out.
I love the people. I love the people who assume, because we both get it.
Yeah.
Who assume that we have no filter.
Yeah,
neither
they don't
of us
know
has
what
a
we're
filter.
keeping.
And I'm like, oh God, no! I would have been stoned to death by now if I had no filter.
I would be like ostracized from the speculative fiction community at this point if I wasn't hardcore controlling myself. It leaks out like little bits on this, you know, like steam being let out when the pressure's too high. And believe me, that's nothing compared to what I actually want to say or think. But so we tried to surprise him with the sunflowers because now he won't cut them down. And I had actually planted them so that they would form like a wall with a walkway over where he has to work sometimes. And I saw them coming up and I was so excited. Little green shoots because I hadn't told him. And then all of a sudden the green shoots were gone. And I was like, Jeffrey, what did you do? And so I told him what I'd done to surprise him. And well, I made him feel bad because then I was like, and your daughter...
oh no.
Planted these with me, came out of her shell, and did this to surprise you. Okay. I had to make him feel bad because he needs to stop killing my things. Anyway, he had treated it over there, not knowing, and killed on my freaking sunflower wall. So then he was like, well, where'd you put the sunflowers? I'll replant them. I was like, no, I don't want you to replant them. You don't get my sunflowers. You don't get the gift of my happy sun-seeking flowers.
Damn it.
Rat bastard. So I don't have any sunflowers in my backyard now because I had planted other ones randomly, but he treated the rocks, and I had planted them along the front of the rocks so they wouldn't be in the middle of the lawn where you'd have to mow them. Yeah. So I'm very sad about that.
We have to call our bug guy. We have a big hornet nest in the ground in the front yard. There's a big hole.
What the heck? There were giant ants in Breckenridge in the house. Well, giant. I kept seeing them, and I was all, these are gone. So I didn't sleep there anyway because it was a small bed.
You weren't going to sleep.
And it was super soft. So, like,
ew.
I was tilted toward Jeffrey. There was so I couldn't sleep until he got out of bed in the morning. That wasn't fun. I didn't like it.
No.
But I very much liked the house. I was like, this is a
buy
big
it.
room, and these are grown-ass adults who live here. Why don't they have a king bed for their guests?
Right.
Damn it.
I don't know how anybody sleeps in a bed smaller than a king. When
when we were first together, obviously, we were sleeping in the double that I'd grown up in, and it was fine then. But we were also skinny, for one.
We're 18.
And for two, we were young and newly in love and probably liked being all up. And also, I didn't sleep then anyway, so it didn't matter. Yes, there's that too. But I wasn't sleeping anyway, so it didn't matter.
When I was single, which granted was about 1,000 years ago, I had a queen size bed. I had one half. The cat had the entire other half. It worked out great.
I just always had a double until I was, we'll say 9. I was on the bottom bunk of a bunk bed. But after that, I got what was an antique bed that we had that had been like the guest bed. Well, it continued to be the guest bed, which meant I had to go sleep in whatever bunk bed with my siblings whenever we had visitors.
So have you watched anything lately?
Yeah, since you stole what I was going to say on the last one.
You watch a ton of stuff.
I know.
So what else do you watch?
We watched Black Widow for family night.
How was it?
It was actually really good. See, here's my thing. I don't consider Black Widow and Hawkeye or whatever his name is to be superhero. I have this whole thing about what people consider superheroes.
Okay.
I'm like, I'm sorry, she's a spy. She can kick ass. She's not a superhero.
Oh,
There's nothing superhero about her, though.
I love watching her just kick somebody in the face.
But she can fight people. That's what she can do. Yeah. How does that make her a superhero? It doesn't. I'm pissing some people off right now.
Probably.
But anyway, it doesn't mean I don't like her. It means she's not a fucking god from another universe, and she's not.
What about Iron Man then?
Here's the thing: we've had a discussion about that. But if Iron Man's not one, then Batman's not one. So that's why I'm like, how do you define superhero?
Oh, good question.
I guess that could have been our question today. How do you define? So anyway, but it annoys me. But he still has even if you go to that, Batman has toys and technology that help make him more of a superhero, which means they fit a little more in that. But if you're just a spy that kicks people's asses and can shoot them, okay. But I like Black Widow, to be clear.
Yes.
I love to watch her kick ass. We just watched the original Iron Man while we were on vacation, too. And so it was fun seeing her when she's first introduced and takes down Happy.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And it's great. And when she gets to be a little bit Black Widow instead of just the assistant in it. But again, so we were both like, how do you have an origin story for somebody who isn't a freaking superhero? I mean, Robert Downey Jr.'s, Iron Man's origin story is probably the darkest, grimmest one. Because he's blown up and he gets PTSD. And it is a really dark one that you don't think about. And then you watch it again and you're like, damn. And of course, his PTSD comes up later in it. Because how do you not get it when you're blown up in a Humvee and watch people get shot down around you? I don't care. But it was good. And she does have her origin story. And I maintain it's more like Red Sparrow and all of those movies that came out. It's the whole secret Russian spy. We take the girls young and we brainwash them. But they even kind of made a joke reference about it's not like you're a superhero like them, So obviously I'm not the only one who feels that way.
What is the actor who was in that, who plays her dad? David?
Oh, I don't know his name, but he's from Stranger Things.
Stranger Things. I love him.
He is funny in this. Like, he's just a big, goofy, dumb spy who was kind of almost a supervillain in his own way for Mother Russia before. So, yes, I really liked the person who played her younger sister. Don't know the actress's name. Not going to try and figure it out. She was really good, and I liked that character, actually. And they have set that up so they could do something with that if they wanted to. But it was really good. There was great action, of course. I like the fight scenes. I grew up watching movies with fight scenes. I love a fight scene. There's some, I was like watching and I was like, now these are chick fights. Because there are some major smackdowns. Because they've got the control of the women still. Who are fighting the two that are out, So, I don't want to give away too much.
I'll have to watch that one.
Yeah.
It was on my list, but
I really enjoyed it. And there are funny things and they try and tie it in.
I saw a little bit of, so I've watched, I think I've seen all or almost all of the Marvel movies.
Okay.
I don't always watch the DC movies.
they're not as good.
So I saw a bit of, the other day I was channel surfing, and I caught a bit of a Justice League movie. Mm-hmm. With everybody. So first of all, it's got Jason Momoa in it. Mm-hmm. Got to watch that.
Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot. But this is in Henry Cavill.
Yep.
And he's playing Superman and Ben
Affleck.
Yeah. Ben Affleck is playing Batman. And so Thing 2 and I were commenting on how pleasant it is to look at Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
And I said, I caught this little bit of one of the DC movies. I said, I haven't really followed him. I said, but you know what? I said, A, he's pretty. B, he didn't have any shirt on. And I said, 3. AB3. I said, he kept punching Batman, Ben Affleck, in the face. And I just really enjoyed that.
I really enjoy Ben Affleck. Or I'm sorry, Batman getting punched as well. They kind of ruined Batman, and we were Batman fans.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Affleck kind of. Although I will say, my husband is a Christian Bale Batman person. I'm a Michael Keaton Batman person. So, that's our little war.
Mm-hmm. No, but nobody's a George Clooney Batman person.
God, no. And Val Kilmer.
Oh, yeah.
No. Which one of them had the nipples on the suits? I think that was
Clooney.
Yeah. And that with Alicia Silverstone in there.
And Robin.
I hate that actor. I'm not going to say his name.
Okay. I can't remember it, so no danger. No danger there.
We mock him mercilessly. I just never... He can't act, first of all.
Okay.
And then playing Robin, of all people, where he was whiny the whole time. Ugh, not a good look. But anyway, yeah. Justice League... Yeah. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. It seems like they're trying to do what the Marvel movies have done, and they just can't do it.
I don't know what's missing.
I don't either. I've tried to examine it. I know that I don't care about Aquaman going forward, because last I heard, they're making that woman who is Johnny Depp's ex be like the main person in it, and I don't like her. She's a scumbag.
No.
She lied, and then there was footage showing that she was the one being the abuser. She tried to ruin his name, and it made her a name. That's why she got an Aquaman. So no. If that's what they're going to do, if she's supposed to be the primary, then I'm out. Sorry, Jason Momoa. I will watch him elsewhere.
I will watch him in anything else.
I'm surprised you didn't watch Game of Thrones if you wanted to see some Jason Momoa shirtless.
I didn't have HBO.
That's right.
I guess I could. Yes, I know. But there are so many things on TV, I cannot watch them all.
Is it on TV? There's got to be on TV.
It probably is. And if I actually sign up I actually pulled up the HBO Max website. So that's a big step for me.
The thing is that we're going to hit critical mass at some point. Like cable just kept growing and growing. And then you have to have a package and have these 200 channels you don't want to get this one channel you want for $20 extra a month.
I don't know why you can't
at this point, everything's going to be streaming. And then you're going to have to, then at what point do you say, I don't need the 23rd streaming? Mm-hmm. I mean, I've already hit my point, which is why I haven't gotten to see that Resident Alien show yet. But
that is
hilarious. But I also watched an old one, though.
Oh, I did too.
That I haven't watched since I was young. Probably the same age as the character. I watched The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane, which is this, it's horror with Jodie Foster. I watched it on Shudder. That's where it's available right now. And, of course, Black Widow was on Disney Plus for the pay thing. But it's Martin Sheen was so freaking creepy in that because he's a perv. He's a rich, spoiled, small-town perv. And she's isolated. And apparently, I'm supposed to be creeped out because she's a child who kills people. And I'm like, whatever. It's But it's survival for her in the movie. It's not that she has fun killing people. They very clearly show she doesn't have fun killing people. But anyway, it was good and creepy as an adult. Like, I don't think I probably found it as creepy as a kid, even though she was alone and there were adults harassing her.
Well, the old movie I watched was not creepy at all.
What was it?
Tap. Tap with Gregory Hines and Sammy Davis Jr.
Oh my gosh.
About tap dancing.
I loved Gregory Hines. I could watch Gregory Hines movies when I was a kid. I was thinking that lately because you see that footage with him. Was it Mikhail Baryshnikov?
Yes.
And whatever that was.
And I know that movie.
I want to watch it.
Yes.
because I loved it.
Yes.
I don't know why I loved Gregory Hines, but I did.
Yeah, me too. And then he
And
was
he's just
Will and
gone.
Grace of all things.
Yes.
Loved his arc on Will and Grace. But yeah, I don't know why.
Where'd you find it?
Well, it was
Or is it just cable, or was it on
no,
streaming?
it was on streaming. So it was either on Hulu or Netflix or Amazon Prime. I don't remember which one.
I could see that being an Amazon Prime one, but
I just was like, I want to watch Tap.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't dance.
Yeah, but it was so fun watching them.
Yes.
It was like, I didn't break dance, and I loved breaking.
Yeah.
Okay, mostly breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo. Come on, that's a primo title.
I was going to say, you just like saying that. Just like last
I do,
week,
but I
you
like that movie
saying
the most, too.
The Boston Massacre.
Yeah. I like fun words, okay? Sue me.
So the other thing I watched that was also very lighthearted, extremely, was the 2016 female Ghostbusters.
Ah, yes.
With Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig. I thought the 2 people who weren't the stars had all the best lines. Kate McKinnon.
I Kate McKinnon. She's funny as hell.
Stole that whole movie.
She steals everything she's in.
And Leslie Jones.
Yeah.
She was freaking hilarious. And what is also not fair, Chris Hemsworth is fucking hilarious.
He is fucking hilarious. So I watched like a making of Thor Ragnarok. And Taika Waititi, or however you say his name, basically most of that movie was not scripted. He felt he had the right actors and he could set them free. And he did. And so all the funny shit in that was them going. He said Chris Hemsworth, like, people don't realize how funny he is.
He's funny. He can act. Yeah. He's gorgeous. I think he
so
can
damn
dance.
funny in that movie. We watched that recently too.
Whenever I need to laugh. Yes. When there's going to be a loud noise and he puts his hands over his eyes. Oh my God. That just...
The glasses with no lenses. Yes.
Answer the phone.
He was like, they kept getting dirty, so I took them out.
And he can't answer the phone because it's in the fish tank. And they're like, the one on the desk.
It's really good.
I
watched, speaking of, I watched The Heat. Because we were at a dinner party and we were talking about irreverent female comedies. And so I didn't remember it being all that funny. And then it was funny as hell. So we rewatched that with Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy. Yeah.
That is a stock character Melissa McCarthy plays in The Heat. I don't always love her, but I thought it was funny. Role.
Okay, but think about it. We watched Miss Congeniality in the last few months. And then here we watched another movie where Sandra Bullock is the FBI agent and she's like
the stiff,
straight-laced and stiff. Instead of Melissa McCarthy was more like her Miss Congeniality character where she was brazen and like didn't have a filter, and if people messed with her she was going to get up all in their faces. So then that element amused me because it was kind of her reversed at her.
I like it.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it. So have you read anything?
Did I?
You're looking at me like...
I read Bloodline by Jess Lowry, which, oh my gosh. Okay, so first of all, it reminded me of Rosemary's Baby and Stepford Wives, but this is a modern book, just rolled into one. It's that horror of, and it is set in the past, this woman who is independent and successful. She's a journalist in like a big city. She meets this man. She gets attacked in the big city. She gets mugged and hurt. And she's scared. And her fiance then is able to convince her to move back to his wholesome small town. I gave you this book. Probably. I've had it on my wish list forever, though.
Oh,
and I finally got it.
Because I'm like, wait, this sounds very familiar.
Yeah, or not even that. I had it on my Kindle forever, and I just hadn't read it.
It's so fucking creepy.
It's so
creepy.
First of all, it's that frustration I get from watching the things that are set in like the 50s and 60s or whenever it was. I don't remember precisely. It might be the 60s. And it's that isolation. I mean, I teach this in that horror workshop briefly. You can have societal isolation. You have to be isolated in Antarctica, right?
Yes.
You can be isolated because of society. Like, this is going to go in that workshop now because it's so fucking well done. Because she can't go to anybody for help because she's the little woman and they're not going to listen to her. Not only that, the town is
Oh, yes.
I mean, I don't know how much to give away, but
Don't.
she is so isolated. There's no escape for her, and she's stuck in a situation. She's seeing that things are worse than she thinks they are, and she's pregnant, which is where we come from the Rosemary's Baby thing. That's not a spoiler. You know that from the beginning. And you're just like, how the hell do you get out of this? So it's absolutely chilling. And like the same way that to me, Handmaid's Tale is chilling. It's a woman trapped, but she's not in the future. This isn't an apocalypse. This is her trap because it's the past, and it's the very nature of the past with women. And it gave me goosebumps at times. So yeah, it's an excellent book. She did it so well, and I feel like, and she's my age, so it's not like she lived it. So
there are definite overtones of Stepford Wives in it, but you're never gonna. At no point are you going to be. I reread the Stepford Wives not that long ago. The book is it's really a novella.
It is, and it's good though.
Oh my
because it's the same thing where it wraps you in, and you're just completely. It's so tense and suspenseful because you're like, how do you escape this?
Yes.
How do you escape this small town when your means of escape have been taken away from you? Mm-hmm. You don't have a vehicle. You don't, and who do you go to? And how far is
who can you trust?
The reach? And who can you? Yes, it's just. My God, it's so well set up. Like, I'm going to look up other books by her because, wow.
Yeah, I meant to do that too.
Yeah.
I read the new Joe Lansdale, which is called Moon Lake.
Oh, yeah. I saw somebody else was reading that.
It's good. It starts out, this boy is riding with his father. His father had grown up in this small town. His father and his mother both had grown up in this small town, and everybody had to move out because it was being flooded. Mm-hmm. And so his mother has run off and left them, and his dad wakes him up in the middle of the night, and they get in the truck and they're leaving. And he thinks they're fleeing, and they stop on this bridge, and he realizes it's the bridge over the lake where the town is flooded. And his father and this is all the beginning of the book, so I'm not ruining anything. His father just hits the gas and drives off the bridge. So a man happens to be fishing with his daughter, and the kid's like 10 or 11 years old, I want to say. He's out fishing with his daughter, and his daughter dives in and saves the boy. The father is drowned, but they save the boy. So the boy and his father are white. The man who's fishing and his family are black. Mm-hmm. Not a huge deal, except they take the boy home. I mean, they go to the police, they report everything, and the police just sort of ignore it and leave the boy staying with his family for months until they can find his aunt, his only living relative. They don't know where his mom is. Nobody's heard from her. So they finally locate his aunt and move him there. And then you spring forward several years, and the main character is working for a newspaper, and he gets a call from the sheriff in that old town and says, you need to come back here because I'm trying to remember what the trigger was. The water in the lake is going down. There's a severe drought. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden things are being seen that were never seen before, and they found his father's car.
All right.
And the guy who owns the newspaper is like, yeah, go cover the story, but you're never going to come back. So, because you're too good. You're too good to work here for the rest of your life. So I'm not doing it justice. I love Joe Lansdale's writing because it is so good and it's so evocative, and it just pulls you right into the everyday life. You're just right in the flow of their life, and you're feeling what they're feeling. And the suspense in this one just builds and builds, and he's so good at that.
Oh, yeah. He's good with race relation, because the bottoms very much hit that, and that was the first thing I read by him. And I highly recommend it. It was like, number 2 on my list out of the best horror.
Yes.
After the Handmaid's Tale or whatever.
Yes.
So
Moon Lake, I highly recommend.
Yeah. All right. Look at that. I didn't watch any TV shows that I wrote down.
I didn't either.
I mean, I watched some, but again, it's mostly my comfort watches that I've already mentioned because school. Yeah. I'm on my second to last class. So, oh my God.
What is it?
Sales management.
Oh, your favorite.
No, actually, I don't. I mean, the sales stuff is good because it's just more marketing stuff. That's what I wanted. That's why I did the marketing add-on on this. So
cool.
It gives me stuff that hopefully I can use for the book stuff.
Yay.
I'm so ready to be done. But hey, let's get started.
All right.
Here we go. This is for affiliate stuff.
Yes.
So, and it's Buzzsprout, which is awesome because that's who we use. Buzzsprout does the podcast. They're a podcast host. They get it out to people. They actually have all this training.
They really do make it very easy.
For real, though. I have used them for so much stuff just setting this up. I'm a lay person. Everything I'm doing, I've learned from them. But like editing and stuff like that, I just don't have the time to learn how to do the really deep stuff.
Yeah.
There will be a link in our show notes at any time. What happens is if you click on that link, say if you wanted to start a podcast and you're interested in checking all this out and you wanted to sign up, you could actually give us a little kickback. It's just a little tiny one, but it helps. It basically will pay for a month of what we're paying for right now just to do this. And you would get, after your second paid invoice, a $20 Amazon gift card. So you support the show. And you also, with a paid plan, get some money for Amazon. And it's win-win, especially with Buzzsprout.
Yeah.
And that's just at buzzsprout.com.
One thing I really like, because we both get them, they send you so many encouraging emails.
Oh, yeah.
They tell you, you've had your 25th download.
Can we get it? And it's a little image with the reward.
Yeah. It's so supportive and nice and friendly.
They're fantastic. They make it so easy. They are all about helping you succeed. It's amazing.
Yes.
So it's awesome. And it's really inexpensive.
Yay. Yay. So I am going to talk about, I'm going to mispronounce this name because it's a long name. So if I mispronounce it while we're going, you'll know why. I'm going to talk about Aloha Wanderwell.
All right.
So I at first I was like, oh, this is mayhem, but it's positive mayhem. And then I got researching it and I'm like, oh, there is a murder.
Oh, look at that.
So surprise.
I have a lot of murder.
You do. For my sources, I used Wikipedia, of course. There's an alohawanderwell.com.
It's always convenient when one of those exists.
Yes, she has her own website and the Mail Factors Register.
Okay.
That sounds really odd, but it's anyway, it had some good information. So she was born Idris Garcia Welsh.
Idris.
I know. I was like, I didn't know. In 1906 in Winnipeg, Manitoba. So you know how I love to set the scene. So what was happening in 1906 besides axe murders? The San Francisco earthquake killed nearly 4,000 people.
Ooh, that's a good one.
SOS was adopted as the international distress signal.
Damn.
Ed Gein was born. I thought you'd like that. Teddy Roosevelt was president. Upton Sinclair's The Jungle was published. And the muffaletta was invented in New Orleans. Let me tell you, I love me a muffaletta.
You do. And an olive, what is it? Salad.
Olive salad.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. So, Idris's last name was changed to Hall when her mother remarried in 1909. Her stepfather joined the Canadian Expeditionary Force in 1914. So, he's sent to Europe to fight in World War I. So, Idris and her sister and her mother followed him to Europe. Can you imagine that now? Taking your family with you when you go to war.
No.
It just doesn't, no. So they traveled around England, Belgium, and France, and I believe she was put in a school. They did go to school there. But the stepdad was killed in combat in 1917.
Oh.
So then we meet Walter Wanderwell. I'm going to call him Wonderwall. I just know I am, but it's Wanderwell. He was born Valerian Johann Pazinski. I'm hoping that's even close to how you pronounce his last name. In 1897 in Poland. So in 1921, 3 years after the end of World War I, he was making headlines as part of the $1 Million Wager. So there are two teams driving Model T Fords, and they were pitted in an international endurance race to see which team could visit the most countries. It's like around the world in 80 days, but longer. So Walter had been, interesting note, had been imprisoned in the U.S. during World War I on charges of being a German spy, but was released in 1918. So in 1922, Edris, remember Edris, who we started with, saw an ad that said, "Brains, Beauty, and Breeches. World tour offer for lucky young woman wanted to join an expedition. Asia, Africa." So she saw this ad and applied. So, I mean,
Why
who
not?
could resist?
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to convent school or, travel the world. Gee, what a choice. But if you do some quick math, Idris was 16 years old and Walter was 25.
Okay.
Which I know was not considered as big a deal back then as it is now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's still, he was 9 years older than she was. So after meeting with him in Paris, she was hired onto the crew as a translator because she did speak 11 languages. Now, I'm not sure she spoke 11 when she was 16, but by the time she died, she spoke 11 different languages. I mean, I can't
awesome.
I barely consider that I have a mastery of English, so. So she was hired as a translator, a driver, and a filmmaker. And despite the fact that swell old Walter was still married to a Broadway chorus girl named Nell, does that not sound...
That's a perfect name.
Right? She took the name Aloha Wanderwell and became the well-known face of the expedition because she was very pretty.
And that's why they asked for beauty, brains, and blah, blah.
Yes. So she was smart and she was resourceful and she was pretty. So she kind of became the face of this team on this race. And they filmed everything. So there was a series of travelogues. So they came to the U.S. in 1925. And they got married. He had divorced his first wife. They married pretty much as soon as they stepped into the U.S. because they wanted to avoid Walter being arrested under the Mann Act, which prohibits taking women across straight lines for immoral purposes.
Ah, the Mann Act.
I mean, M-A-N-N.
Oh.
The Mann Act.
That makes more sense. Yeah. I was like, that's a funny name.
Yes, that is. So they did, the two of them had a daughter, Valerie, who was born in December of 1925, and a son, Niall, who was born in April of 1927.
Okay.
So Wanderwell became the first, Aloha, I'll call her Aloha.
Yeah.
She became the first woman to drive around the world, certified by the good people at the Guinness Book of World Records, beginning and ending her journey in Nice, France. And it took from December 29th of 1922 to January 1927. So it took 5 years. Well, it took 4 years and a couple of months. So that's ages 16 to 21. I feel like a slacker. I don't know about you, but I did not drive around the world during those years. This was all in a Model T Ford.
Cool.
I was like, oi, how much would you hurt when you got out of that car at the end of the day? Oh my God. My tuchus is killing me. So I do want to make a note. The first woman to circumnavigate the world in an automobile was Harriet White Fisher in 1909. Well, from 1909 to 1910. But she used a chauffeur and did not drive herself.
Lame.
Can you bet? I can't imagine.
She didn't do it then. He did.
Having the money to be chauffeured around the world.
So what you do is get on a boat to move to the next.
I guess. And in the middle of this, they did get married. So they obviously took breaks because they came to the U.S. So Aloha, so after this drive around the world was completed, she did not sit still. The woman never sat still. She learned how to pilot a German seaplane that she eventually landed in an uncharted part of the Amazon, searching for an explorer who had gone missing while searching for the lost city of Z, which may or may not be the same as El Dorado.
Okay.
Lost City of Gold. May or might not. Don't know. That was not my particular interest at this point in time.
That's right. You can only follow so many threads.
She once ran out of fuel on the Paraguay River and, of course, received help from the native peoples. In addition to filming first contact with them, she filmed ceremonial dances and more. And that 32 minutes of film is still preserved at the Smithsonian.
And then she filmed them dying of all the lovely diseases that were brought with her.
Didn't say.
Oh, okay. It never will.
No.
Like, yay, good for her.
They sailed to Cuba. They sailed to South Africa, often running out of fuel and other transportation necessities. That would be a stopper for me. Anyway, traveling through Africa in 1926 through 1928, they used crushed bananas for grease and elephant fat for engine oil.
Oh.
Not sure how the elephants felt about that.
Yeah.
Not good,
like, well, we need a little more engine oil. Let's kill an elephant.
Yeah.
And use this much of the poor elephant.
Yeah. There is an author and cartoonist named Stookie Allen who did a lot of historical stuff, talked about a lot of male and female explorers. He contends that Aloha cut her hair and fought as a member of the French Foreign Legion.
Okay.
Now, remember, she had infant children with her at the time. I would think that would impact her ability to fight for the French Foreign Legion, but I am not intimately familiar with that organization. Maybe they were more forward-minded than I think they were.
Well, if she cut her hair, was it to disguise herself as a man?
I would. That's my guess.
No.
But what does she disguise her children as? Dogs?
Well, she was with other people, so I don't think was she wearing her children when she went to war?
I don't know. I think that was something.
She maybe had somebody babysit.
Well, that was something that that made me wonder, because in all these stories of all of her adventures, she had 2 children, and there's very little nothing about them. Well, they'll make an appearance later. So you might wonder if these people were rich, and they were actually not. One source said Walter had no money of his own, but was skilled at getting others to subsidize his adventures. And he often took the bored children of the wealthy to the exotic locales he visited with Aloha.
It's a good way to get them to fund you.
Exactly. So in 1929, they returned to the U.S. and settled in Miami. So they bought a 110-foot yacht, the Karma. I did not do anything to illustrate what 110 feet long was.
How many giraffes is it, though?
5 and a half.
And a half. Because they're 20.
It was 5.5 giraffes long.
There you go.
This yacht was called the Karma, and they were going to travel to the South Seas and film their adventures. There was also something else he intended to accomplish. We'll get to that later. So the Karma had been seized by the revenuers with 300 cases of whiskey on board. So Walter got this somewhat dubious vessel for a song. And the press at the time described it as being as seaworthy as a cardboard raft. Oh. And apparently there are, the Coast Guard has regulations about how many people you have to have as crew on ships on boats of a certain size. So Walter listed the people who had paid to take the trip as crew members, despite the fact that many of them had never set foot on a boat before. Yeah, this is just... Can you not see Gilligan's Island come in here? I mean, that's not where this is going, but really, Gilligan's Island. So the crew intended to support themselves on this journey by selling paintings and poetry they created on the journey.
It's like elementary schoolers going on a trip.
It's like,
I'm going to draw this picture and sell it. I tried that when I was a kid.
They likened it to beatniks. One of the articles said they were like the beatniks. They preceded the beatniks, but... So on December 5th, 1932, they were getting ready to leave from their port in Long Beach, California. Aloha had taken the children, see, I told you they'd come back, with her to a meeting to discuss film rights for this journey. So most of this crew was not on the boat. They had taken Shirley, but there were a couple of men and a couple of women in the galley of the yacht when all of a sudden a face appeared. You can't see. I'm gesturing. I'm drawing this.
She has her hand was a face.
This face appeared at an open porthole. And a man in a gray coat, and he's got the collar flipped up and his hat pulled down over his eyes, asked for Captain Wanderwell. And they were like, "Oh, he's in his cabin up wherever." I don't know how you give directions on a boat, so he's in his cabin up yonder.
Aft.
Yeah, that. So apparently the people heard the man's footsteps walking away, and they heard Walter say hello. And a few minutes later, they heard a gunshot. So of course they race to his cabin, and they find him slumped on the floor, shot in the back, dead of a gunshot wound to the heart. And there's no sign of the man in the gray coat. Nor is there any sign of a gun. The gun is... he was not polite enough to leave a smoking gun on the floor.
Mystery.
It is. So the entire crew was questioned. Aloha had a solid alibi because she was at the meeting with her children, but she added a lot of drama to the situation by claiming Walter had made hundreds of enemies in his life, and any of them could have shot him dead.
It was Nell.
Well, there was speculation that he was killed by the husband or father of a girl he'd wronged, since apparently he still had the reputation for being a womanizer.
I'm sure. It's not like they just stopped.
Stop, yeah. So, to add to the confusion, there's so many threads here. Really, who could we put in this movie? So, just to add to the confusion, the British Duke of Manchester's son was signed on as a crew member. Lord Edward Eugene Fernando Montaguson, known as Lord Eddie, was the son of His Grace the Duke of Manchester and his immensely wealthy American wife. So he was there, and he was briefly held, but it was for visa restrictions or something. He was never seriously considered they never really considered that he did the murder. So if you want more confusion, Walter had reported to his crew that his handgun was missing just a few days earlier. He had instructed them to search local pawn shops when they went ashore, but none were able to find the missing gun. Of course, how hard did they look? These are a lot of spoiled rich kids.
Yeah.
They asked someone walking down the street, "Excuse me, did you see a gun?" No? Okay, thanks. So, it was the same caliber as the gun that killed him. So that led the police to suspect that the murder was planned by someone who knew him well, perhaps one of his crew, perhaps even his wife, who the police never considered really seriously as a suspect.
No, but just
because she was
his
pretty.
Gun disappeared. She was pretty.
She was pretty. Pretty women don't kill people.
Kill.
Not pretty ones.
No.
But wait, there's more. Wait, there's more. I have a Ginsu knife for you. Yeah. So, Walter was planning to use this particular cruise to gain attention and support for his pet project, which was an international police force. So, he was lobbying the League of Nations hard to back him and to make him the head of the police force. It was suggested that he thought the League of Nations was an international government body and imagined it had a lot more power than it really did. He organized a group called Work Around the World Educational Club, WAWEC, and WAWEC gave himself the title of Captain Commanding and had leaders stationed around the world under his direct command. Members had to swear off tobacco and alcohol and adhere to a strict dress code. Membership in WAWEC was only $5 until Walter realized how popular the idea was, and then he raised it to $200. $200 is key here because he changed that to $200, and he also often charged people he was taking on his adventures $200.
So he's like really creative, like the villain in the Austin Powers. $200. Put the pinky in the mouth.
Yeah. So the movement was big enough that it caught the eye and the ear of J. Edgar Hoover, who wanted to keep an eye on this man he believed to be creating a private army. But we fast forward to Walter's death, and Aloha claimed that anti-WAWEC forces were likely responsible for silencing her husband and his radical ideas.
Ooh.
So, there was a former crew member named William Curly Guy who was initially suspected because he had been on a previous voyage. Walter had put Curly and his wife ashore in Panama. I can't remember what the exact issue was. And because of being put ashore, they were not U.S. citizens. Curly was Welsh, and I think his wife and her friend were British. Not that Welsh isn't British, but so his wife and her friend were immediately taken back to England. So he separated from his wife. He wanted his money back. Walter wasn't giving him his money back. Curly even showed up at Walter's hotel at one point to warn off other adventurers from trusting Walter, and he succeeded. There were some people who left because of, what Curly said. He readily agreed that he despised Walter, but he had an alibi for the night of the murder. He was having dinner with friends several miles away, and 6 people backed up his alibi.
Okay.
Guy was Curly. Curly guy.
I have a side note here. Curly guy. That was a really popular nickname for men in like the late 1800s, early 1900s, and half the time they're bad guys.
Curly?
Curly.
Huh.
Like in Wild West, there's the Curlies.
There's always a Curly. There's always a Curly. So Curly was tried in early 1933, but was acquitted. He was acquitted despite...
He was destarted.
Yes. Despite the eyewitnesses in the galley making a positive identification. His alibi won the day for him. So he was immediately detained and deported back to Great Britain, but that reunited him with his wife. So that was kind of a win for him.
Right. Oh, darn.
Gee, send me back.
Don't deport me. Don't throw me into that brer boat.
So Walter's murder was never solved.
Okay.
They never figured out for sure who did it. Aloha married another Walter who was part of their camera crew. She married Walter Baker in 1935 and continued to travel. This cracks me up. Their destinations included New Zealand, Australia, Hawaii, India, Cambodia, Wyoming, and Indochina.
Wyoming?
I'm like, I did not know Wyoming was so exotic.
How'd you sail to Wyoming?
I don't know. Well, they drove a lot, remember?
Yeah.
She was a driver, that one. She continued to give lectures and wrote an autobiography. So if anybody wants to read Aloha's story, the name of the book is Call to Adventure. It was published in 1939. She was fucking 33 years old, and she had enough material... for
an adventure memoir.
Unlike someone like, say, Justin Bieber, who wrote his memoir at 22. And I'm like, the fuck? So, at the ripe old age of 33, she published her autobiography. It was republished in 2012. She worked in radio broadcasting and print journalism, and she passed away in 1996 at the age of 90.
Woo!
So she just, I was fascinated by this whole, she drove around the world in a Model T. So when I first...
I hope she killed her husband, too, just for kicks.
Just for kicks. When I first was reading about this, it wasn't apparent that she was part of a big team. I thought it was her, on her own. No, it was not
doing her Amelia Earhart thing.
But she was part of this team. They did, and that was the thing. They documented so much of what they did and where they went. And more than just that one film of hers is in the Smithsonian.
Oh, cool.
And the film archives. So that would be really fascinating to look up. I forgot to say there are pictures of her. I will include them. And I will have, when you're hearing this, I will have included pictures of the Molassacre.
Yeah.
There's a picture of firemen up to their knees in molasses.
Yikes. Yeah. I just want to see the pictures of, like, the destroyed city.
I know you do. So, what are you talking about this week?
So, I don't have a title for it. So, it's a 2-parter. It's all in this episode, but there's 2 elements to it. So, it's Ray and Cells. And the sources are New York Times, Illinois Innocence Project from the University of Illinois website, and Murderpedia. On October 12th, 1997, so, a year after Aloha died, Julie Ray tucked her 10-year-old son Joel into bed in their Illinois home. Ray was a single mom, divorced for 3 years. She was attending school to get her doctorate in educational psychology.
Wow. Good for her.
Yeah. At around 4:30 a.m. on October 13th, Lisa Bridget was awakened by someone pounding on her door. When she opened the door, she found Julie Ray, frantic, bloodied, and dressed in a t-shirt and underwear. Ray said someone had kidnapped her son. He was gone, that she'd fought with the man, but he'd gotten away. She was a black belt in Taekwondo. The man had wrestled her to the ground when they got outside. She fought him in the house and followed him as he tried to escape.
Well, yeah.
And fought with him outside. And because she didn't see her son in the room, she didn't know if he was already gone or what, he managed to slam her head into the ground.
Oh.
So stun her and get away.
Okay.
Bridget called the police, and when the sheriff arrived, he found Joel in the home. Not missing, but dead. His bloodied body had fallen on the far side of his bed, between the wall and his bed.
Oh, God.
An autopsy would show that he'd been stabbed 12 times, and that 2 of those stab wounds had gone through his aorta. A now hysterical Ray was treated at the hospital 4, from the New York Times, a quote, "A black eye, rub burns on her knees, a wound on her right arm that required stitches and scratches and abrasions on her head, both shoulders, and the tops of her feet." As the investigation continued, no signs of forced entry were found. She thought that she remembered locking the door, but she couldn't guarantee it. The knife belonged to Ray. It had been taken out of a butcher block in the kitchen, and there were no fingerprints on it. Police suspected Ray of having murdered her son. So they didn't fingerprint, nor did they keep the blankets from Joel's bed. Instead, they looked anywhere Ray might have gotten blood after attacking her son, including her septic tank. They actually cleaned out her septic tank to go through everything to look for something she got rid of. Her washing machine to see if there was blood in it, if she'd washed clothing. Luminol detected 0 blood in the house, aside from the obvious, in Joel's room. So they didn't keep any other evidence. They didn't search for any other evidence. They had decided mom did it.
Oh, God.
And so they had only looked for the things that would confirm that. Confirmation bias. In 2000, Julie Ray was indicted in her son's murder by a grand jury.
Oh.
The prosecution, lacking any concrete evidence, based their case on bloodstain pattern analysis. While Ray's shirt had been stained with her own blood, testing did show that a small amount of her son's blood was on her shoulder. The defense said the blood had clearly gotten on her shirt when she fought her son's assailant. 2 experts testified for the prosecution, one studying the blood in the room and one the blood on her shirt. Both stated there was no evidence that a third person was in the house, that the scene had clearly been staged. The defense's experts said the blood on her shoulder was only on the surface of the shirt's fibers, and the fact that it had not soaked into her shirt meant that it was transferred by the attacker, not splattered there where it would have soaked in. But they felt, the prosecution felt that it was her son, pushing back at her shoulder while she was stabbing him. The blood evidence paired with her ex-husband saying she'd considered getting an abortion when she found out she was pregnant with Joel at age 17. And a couple neighbors saying they'd never seen her cry after her son's death. You know, I talked about that because I don't cry in front of people. Nobody saw me cry after my dad died.
No. I
actually told jokes at his funeral. So I was like, I would totally be convicted because people want you to cry to prove that you're sad.
Fuck them.
And some of us don't do it.
No.
But I've thought of that before. Whenever you hear of somebody getting this because I didn't see her cry, so.
Yeah, or, they didn't seem to have any reaction, and it's like, shock.
In front of you. It's like a grief, people want grief porn.
Yes.
When somebody, I think people wanted that from me.
Yeah.
But anyway, Ray was convicted based on those things in 2002 for the murder of her son and sentenced to 65 years in prison. Now I'm going to change gears for a bit, and you'll see why later. So we're going to talk about Tommy Lynn Sells. I mean, I feel like people can guess why we're going to come back to it. But anyway, on December 31st, 1999, so 2 years after the incident with Julie and Joel, Sells broke into the San Antonio home of a friend of his and his wife's from church. The father owed him money for drugs Sells had sold him. Sells knew the father was away helping someone move from Kansas, and so he went and broke into his house because Sells had temper problems. And he had talked to the man, and the man had said, I'll get you the money, and he felt he wasn't going to get the money, so he was going to go take it while the man wasn't in the house.
Okay. What kind of church do they go to?
Right.
I'm like...
Sells went directly to the bedroom of Terry and Crystal Harris's daughter, age 13, and her friend Crystal, age 10. It was Crystal's dad that Katie's dad had gone to help, and he was moving him. I think there was marital problems. So anyway, the kids were staying with that family. So Katie was sleeping on the bottom bunk with Crystal on the top one. Sells broke in, crawled into bed with Katie, covered her mouth, cut her sleep shorts off, and he started touching her inappropriately. But when he did so, Katie broke away from him, and she screamed and tried to get out.
Good for her.
But Sells was able to get to the door before her, and he blocked the door and he turned on the light. She yelled at him that he'd cut her, because you cut me at some point. I don't know when it happened, probably when she was getting away. I think it was on her arm or something like that. And he was able to grab her and get behind her, and he slit her throat twice with a 12-inch knife. He dropped her to the floor, where he then got down on top of her, and he stabbed her 16 more times. And where she was gurgling and as she died from the knife slits. He then set his sights on Crystal, who promised not to say anything. She said, if you just go, I won't say who you were. I don't know who you are. So he just kind of swiped at her with the knife, and he did cut her throat. So he thought he was leaving her dead as well. And she fell and acted dead. She waited for him to leave. Girl. Here's the thing. She had to lie there while he cleaned his prints off the doorknobs. He removed 2 window screens because he couldn't remember what he'd touched. Because the doors were locked, he actually got in through a window there. And she thought that he must have killed everybody before he came in. I mean, nobody heard the screams. Nobody woke up. Nobody came. So everybody must be dead. So she laid there until he was gone, till she was sure he was gone. And then she walked, I think it was like a quarter mile, to a neighbor's house and woke them up. And she wasn't able to talk because of the cut in her throat, but she was able to write down so that they could call the police. There were 3 other people in the house that didn't wake up during the attack, didn't hear it. Crystal's ID would help convict Sells. She was able to look at a photo book that they had, and she found him. And he did admit to the crime. He even took the police back to the house and reenacted it for them, and it matched what Crystal had said. With his confession added to the mix, he was found guilty of Katie's murder and the attempted murder of Crystal on September 18th, 2000, and sentenced to death. At some point, he started confessing to other crimes, citing a religious awakening. At first, he said he'd killed another girl in Kentucky, but the confessions kept coming, and he ultimately called himself the Coast-to-Coast Killer. He did end up being convicted of the death of a 9-year-old named Mary Beatrice Perez. He abducted her in 1999 and abandoned her body in a creek bed where she was found wearing her Mickey Mouse t-shirt and a single sock. His confession to this crime garnered him a charge of life in prison. So she was actually taken from a market that her grandmother, basically under the grandma's nose when she turned away.
Oh, God.
He was executed by lethal injection in 2014, refusing to meet the eyes of his victims' families who were able to witness his death. They unanimously found it to have been too gentle a death considering what he'd done to the girls, because it was lethal injection. They go to sleep peacefully. I wonder how frustrating that must be to watch. You know the monster's gone, but it was very peaceful. Some of the other crimes he confessed to or was indicated as being the perpetrator of include the following. And this is just a short list. 1983, witnesses saw him leave a Missouri home in which the bodies of Colleen Gill and her 4-year-old daughter were found. They had been beaten to death. 1985, he beat in a court and her 4-year-old son to death with a baseball bat, claiming she had tried to steal from him. They'd had sex. He'd gone back to her place. They'd had sex. He'd woken up to her going through his backpack. So she and the 4-year-old had to die. Brutally, I guess. 1987, he murdered Suzanne Korch in New York and the Dardine family in Illinois. This one is the most disturbing to me. The Dardine family, so he had taken the father out and shot him in a field. Then he beat the 3-year-old son and pregnant wife to death. Mrs. Dardine, who had also been raped, went into labor during the incident and birthed the baby. It was 2 months early, and he beat the baby to death. The brand new newborn, because he didn't know what else to do, he said. That one wins. 1992, he raped Fabienne Witherspoon, a 19-year-old woman, multiple times. Said that, he had her in there, and he raped her a few times, then he took her in the shower and attempted to rape her there. She survived because while she was in there, she grabbed some sort of ceramic item and started pounding him on the head with it. And she was actually able to stun him and get away with it. And he dropped his knife because he always held a knife on them while he was doing it. So he did recover before she could get away, and he tied her up and he held the knife to her throat. But she talked him out of killing her. She said she was pregnant and that her husband was on the way home. He'd be there any minute. And so he left, and he actually mumbled something on the way out. I don't know how I survived this, or I don't know. I can't believe I'm alive. I think that was it.
Oh, my God.
And she was like, all I thought was, I can't believe I'm alive. He did end up hospitalized from her counterattack on him. So he was hospitalized for 5 days because of the damage she did to him, which I find oddly satisfying. He pled guilty to malicious wounding, a lesser charge, because he tried to twist it like she had just assaulted him and he hadn't done anything to her. And so the prosecution was worried he was going to get away with it. So they let him get away with malicious wounding, which carried a very short sentence. So he was in and out. 1998, he killed a coworker in Texas by gunshot. And by the way, that malicious wounding, that was 1992. So Joel died in 1997. If they'd actually pressed real charges for, say, repeated rape, like each attempt, each charge, maybe he would have still been in jail. Just saying. These are just a few of his crimes that he's associated with. He's admitted up to 70 crimes, but right before, remember the confession killer, which eventually I'm going to have to do, but nobody knows who that guy actually killed. So they were very wary of believing him when he was confessing to all these crimes. So police do believe he's a viable suspect in at least a dozen, if not more. It's thought that there are at least 15 cases with enough evidence to actually convict him in court if they were to do it. However, with his death in 2014 by lethal injection, any further information has died with him. While he was alive, various police officers in different states were able to take him around to supposed murder sites so that he would just be shipped from state to state and then he'd take them because he'd traveled everywhere, coast to coast. That's why he called himself that. So they took him around and he was able to give them information and try to show where people were or whatever so that they could connect it with the actual crimes they were aware of, bodies they'd found that weren't solved.
Right.
He was someone who was willing to speak with experts on why he became a serial killer. He said he was molested by a family member or family friend for several years as a child. In addition, he and his twin sister both contracted meningitis at 18 months old. He survived, but his twin died. At 15 or 16 years old, he killed his first victim. That was his claim. By this time, he was out on his own. He had run away or whatever. He didn't have a good family life. And he would spend the rest of his life traveling by hopping trains and hitchhiking. He was basically indigent. He took odd jobs here and there, which is how he got connected with some of his victims. And that's why he committed crimes in so many states, because he'd just hop on, hitchhike with somebody, jump on a train, and go wherever it led him. He did say he was drawn to places with mountains, and he did come to Wyoming, Colorado, West Virginia, several places. There's a lot of places with mountains here.
Yes.
So, why did I bring up Tommy Lynn Sells? Because in 2004, he confessed to having an altercation with a woman and her small son, in a convenience store in Illinois, then following them home. He said he broke into the home that night long after the residents gone to bed, so he was sure they were asleep when all the lights had gone off, that he grabbed a knife from a butcher block in the kitchen, and that he walked into the first bedroom he came to and started stabbing the occupant of the bed. He was then attacked by the mother after the boy screamed during his stabbings. That's what woke her up that night, was her son screaming.
Okay.
The woman she fought him in the house, and the fight spilled out of the house into the yard until he was able to stun her and get away.
Gosh, what does that sound like?
Yeah. Also in 2004, Ray had her conviction overturned due to a legal issue with her case. She was retried in 2006 and found not guilty of her son's murder on July 26, 2006. So she'd been in prison for almost a decade? About a decade.
For something she didn't do.
Sadly, many still believe she murdered her son, despite the laundry list of injuries that she could not have gotten from her son, because there were no related injuries on him that showed that he had put up a fight.
Yeah, the rug burn.
And a knife cut on the arm that bled heavily that had to be stitched. Yeah. And cuts on the top of her feet. How do they think that happened? Anyway. They made their decision, and they followed it. So, during the time she was in prison, because she was felt to have murdered her own son, she was abused by both the guards and the inmates. She was, that person. They said a mother who would murder her child is going to be tortured in prison, and she was. So, even before, while she was waiting, when she was going through the trials and stuff like that, she wasn't able to sleep in her own home anymore. And actually, friends had to cycle out with her. She got an apartment and she could not sleep if she was alone. So friends would come to stay with her. I mean, she was very traumatized by the whole thing. Anyway, she now suffers from PTSD. She's gone through extensive therapy. She actually is a PTSD dog to help her through the attacks, the panic attacks.
What is more severe than PTSD? Because I feel that's what she's suffering from, is some level that we can't even imagine.
Right.
That is so horrific.
She's been unable to get work due to her criminal record. She was completely exonerated in 2010, because when they found her not guilty in 2006, not guilty doesn't mean innocent.
Oh, right.
But they did then go in and completely exonerate her in 2010. So she is now declared innocent. Not just not guilty, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because they will never go after Tommy Lynn Sells, because he's already dead.
He's dead, yeah.
So there will never be that satisfaction. Nobody else will ever be actually charged with her son's death. And so people still think she did it. It's still questioned whether Ray and her son Joel were the victims Sells spoke of. I mean, it's so on the nose, but some of his details were fuzzy or off, such as whether the house was on the corner or the center of a cul-de-sac. There is also a discrepancy where Ray says the attacker wore a mask and Sells claims he didn't wear a mask in the murder he committed. There was something about Sells thought maybe he remembered some columns on the house, and there weren't columns on her house. But he also said when he was being interviewed, I get the details between my different crimes mixed up because I was heavily on drugs at the time. So gosh, those small differences. He followed somebody home at night. And anyway, I think it's clear that I believe that she did not kill her damn son.
No.
And the case is held up as an example of blood analysis gone wrong in terms of convictions. In fact, I couldn't re-find it after I'd read it. There were some really good articles I read about, I think it was the New Yorker one that I read, that was about how badly blood spatter analysis and blood analysis can redirect a crime because they can make it what they want it to be. I mean, here we love watching forensic shows where they do that, and it's this one silly little thing convicts everybody. But of false convictions, blood analysis has been a huge factor in that.
Oh.
And honestly, it has have other forensic methods because a lot of it is comparing it to something else. That's how we learn forensics. It's right. We have looked at this crime and here's what we feel happened. So anyway, it's a New York Times article. Really interesting when I link to it if people want to read it. It has a bunch of cases. It wasn't just about Ray and her son. A bunch of cases that have since it has been proven that the blood analysis drove it in the wrong direction and falsely convicted people. And it goes more into detail about the specific blood evidence that was used against her. I mentioned the 2 people, but there was a complete lack of the scientific method in determining the sources of the blood. They hadn't even... The person who, neither of the blood people did reenactments of any sort to see how it happened, or to see where that blood on her shoulder came from. They didn't measure his hands to see if this fit with what was on her. They didn't do any of these things. They just said, no, this is how it is.
'Cause we say so.
Right. And so it was just a complete crap show. And I mean, the prosecution tried to call them on that during, they had another expert come in. It didn't matter. People heard those details and they were like, she did it. The nature of Joel's murder fits with some of Sells' other cases. His weapons were always those of convenience. He didn't come there with anything. He would either beat somebody to death, strangle them to death. He did bring his knife later on. So that's actually, his, I think it was his knife. It was a buck knife.
Well, because in this one...
It was stolen from the block.
Right.
Which was what he did in his other crimes. So he attacked both male and female, young and old, obviously. Yeah. It was often driven by a rage or revenge, by a vengeful action because she was stealing from me, therefore I had to beat her 4-year-old to death, as well as her, so that her 4-year-old couldn't, give evidence against me. Or tell them, a 4-year-old can't identify you, dude.
No.
But it was often, and with this whole thing with Ray and her son was because she was rude to him in a convenience store. He can't even say what she did, just that she was rude to him in the convenience store, which could have been anything from her not paying attention because she was trying to get her little guy home.
Yeah.
And anyway.
Who knows if she was even rude?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, she might have maybe he said something and she didn't hear and didn't respond. You have no idea because he doesn't say. And he actually killed somebody that they're pretty sure he's responsible for nearby 2 days after Joel's death. So, anyway, that was Ray and Sells. So that...
Wow.
It's just...
Well, that was just a little... piece of
disheartening.
It is.
Because even now she's out and she's a, vocal opponent of using blood analysis to convict somebody if there's not other evidence.
Right.
Like and that's the thing is that often when you talk to an expert, anything like that is meant to be used in conjunction with other evidence.
It's used as support. Yes. The blood evidence supports this evidence, not, the blood evidence is it.
This is it. This is all we can convict you on. And she honestly just kept saying, he's gone, he's gone. The guy took my son. And when the sheriff found the son and told her, I mean, she completely broke down. She dropped to her knees. Your son's in there dead. So, I mean, nothing she did was inappropriate.
Right. She gave them all the grief they could want.
In that moment, but the neighbors didn't see her crying. So she must have killed her child. And yeah, she has voiced being unhappy that there will never be a court case against Sells to be able to get that official closure. But it is nice that they took it far enough that they were able to exonerate her later.
Yes.
What was it, 4 years after the not guilty or whatever? But it's useless.
Yeah.
I imagine that got her record expunged. But by then, I mean, she tried to leave the state and start over. But yeah.
And none of that can make up for loss of her son.
And then abuse for...
And then, none of it can make up for everything.
What I say, almost a decade in prison?
Yeah, she suffered in prison.
As a child killer. Yeah. Who, while they're abusing her for being a child killer, is grieving the loss of somebody else having killed her son. Brutally. She blames herself because she didn't wake up sooner.
Of course.
Yeah.
But
That's going to happen every time.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure the people who were in the house who didn't wake up when the girl screamed.
Oh, God, yes.
But I mean, we don't know the layout of the house. We don't know.
Right. Or was it a scream, or it was Crystal telling the story.
Right.
That's how they knew anything about it. And him, so who knows?
Yeah. Was it really a scream? Was it a shout? Was it
a shout, which you can easily think nightmare and turn back over?
Or... I don't know how old were the girls?
Was it 13 and 10 or something like that?
So they weren't sisters, they were friends.
Yeah.
And who knows? Have you ever had a girls sleepover and...
Right, there's noise.
There's a lot of noise sometimes.
Girls are noisy.
Yes.
And you're just going to block out the noises that they're making. I think that her little sister, Katie's, was sleeping with the mom because she had a brother who was in a different room, and then they said the mother was sleeping with one of the daughters. So I assume that was her bunk that Crystal was staying in. I mean, they didn't say that, but that's my assumption. Sense. So she's sleeping with mom because dad's on a trip, So, yeah, the master bedroom might not have been anywhere near it. What's a kid around the same age going to do if he hears his sister yell once or yell? He's going to ignore it and assume that the parents are going to do something about it.
And kids sleep, some
Rocks,
kids, very deeply.
Yeah, I think I don't remember if he was younger. Well, I think he was a little younger. So, 10, 11, whatever. He was out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that was a bummer. Thanks.
There you go. I guess we could have done it in the opposite order. I could have gone first again so that you could tell the less dismal adventure story of Aloha.
Wanderwell.
All right. We do have a question this time.
In honor of Aloha.
In honor of Aloha. Where did oh my gosh, my pages are everywhere. Okay. Because Aloha traveled everywhere in adventure, our question was, what's your dream travel destination? And that will be on the Facebook page.
That will be a good question. I don't know if I must have one.
I mean, I have a bunch of places I want to go. I do want to go to Venice before it's gone. That's like a big one.
Venice holds no allure for me.
I have a thing with water. Also, I just want to go to Italy because they're night people.
I would like to go. There are a lot of places I would like to go, but I don't know if I have a dream destination. I would have said Scotland, but now I have been there. I would like to go back, but I'd like to move there.
No dream destinations. I always wanted to go to Egypt, but I always wanted to really, really go to Egypt and see the pyramids and
yeah.
Anyway, you guys, you can send us stories. Hey, send us your natural disaster stories, things you have survived. Yes. I want to hear about that.
I would love
floods,
to hear about that.
Tornadoes, hurricanes, fires, like
bears.
We know that's hell. We know bears. The bears.
Bears breaking into your house. That happens.
It does around here.
That's a natural disaster.
Actually. So you can send that to mysteriesmonstersmayhem@gmail.com. You can use the form on our website at mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com to submit that to us. Easy peasy. It worked beautifully, I tell you what.
But if you like what you hear, like our podcast, share it, recommend it, tell your friends.
Review it on the sites that allow that. It does help get more listeners. And if we get more listeners, we'll continue.
And anything you want us to talk about, let us know.
Shoot it our way. Post it on the Facebook page.
Yep.
Send us an email or through the forum, whatever.
Yep.
Like you want a story? That's how we ended up doing 2 of the stories the last 2 episodes. So.
I would say call us, but neither one of us answers our phone.
Yeah, don't call me. You can text me, just don't necessarily expect me to write you back.
Shannon actively doesn't answer her phone. I put mine down and walk away and forget where it is.
My mom calls my husband because she knows I won't answer the phone. So then I'll hear, "Hi, Mom," and then I know that she's got something to talk to me about. So there you go. Anyway, thank you for listening to us.
Yes, have a wonderful week, and we will talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.